We're ready to begin assembly on this MTX75, and the first thing we have to install in the case is the reverse idler gear and one of the two thrust washers. I've seen this go wrong a couple of ways. People do not install this gear first, and it's impossible to install later, so the transmission has to be completely disassembled. Or they completely install this gear and bearing assembly, and then they can't get the rest of the transmission assembled because this gear is in the way. So the trick is, first we install a thrust washer with the tab down, properly oriented in the case so that it sets flat and is not able to rotate, and we follow that up with the reverse idler gear. But we do not install this cage needle bearing. We do not install the other thrust washer or the support. And the reason for that is this gear needs to be able to be over out of the way as we install our input shaft. We can bring our input and output shaft assemblies. We have these all in neutral and pre-meshed together so that the two gears are set, and that will allow us to slide that down past the reverse idler gear. There it fell. And now that the main gear train is in place alongside the reverse idler gear, we can install the cage needle bearing, and this thrust washer has to be properly oriented into that tab location to prevent it from spinning and allow the whole assembly to seat into place. And now we'll be ready to assemble our shift forks. Next, we're going to install the shift forks. We have to start from the bottom up. So we start with our fifth and reverse shift fork all the way in the bottom. And that one works against the output shaft. There we go. No, not quite. There we go. And then our 3/4 shift fork, and this one works in against the input shaft. There we go. It didn't fight me. And then finally our 1/2 shift fork back over on the output shaft side. Now with all the synchronizers in neutral, all these shift forks installed, those 3 fork tabs should line up for the shifter to be engaged into neutral, and we should be able to slide our shift rails right into place. There we go. So now we've got the gear train, shift rails, and shift forks. The final main assembly is the differential assembly, and that just drops right in. And the last few things to go back into the transmission before final assembly, we've got our magnet, drops into its home down by the final drive. We've got these 2 bolts that attach through the case in order to retain that reverse idler gear. Get those started. We'll come back and tighten that up. And then we've got the shifter assembly. Now the shifter needs to be in neutral. All the synchronizers are in neutral. And then when you place the shifter or selector assembly in, you see that tab engage into the shift forks. And again, we'll just get a couple of bolts started to hold it in place. Come back and snug those up, torque to specification, and then we'll be ready to install the front case half. There is one important step I'm just not going to be able to carry out on this transaxle at home, and that is the removal of these races. There's 3 races on each end of the case. and the measurement and selection of the selective shim. In my MTX75 series, we measured for and selected for that shim. In this transaxle, it's difficult to measure because they specify preload. And so the procedure is we pull this bearing out, we install a 1mm shim on the output, a 1mm shim on an input, and a 1.1mm shim down in the differential. Those shims are all smaller than what would be expected to be required. You assemble it with those measuring shims, measure the end play of all three of the shafts, and then you can do the math to select for the proper shims. I'm not going to be able to do that on this transaxle at home today, so we're going to reinstall with the existing shims. With the transmission face up as it's been assembled, if everything's properly aligned, the two halves of the case should drop right together. There are alignment dowels on the case. The shift rails are very critical that they fall into proper alignment. Let's give her a shot. And there we go. We're lined up on each of our alignment dowels. Our input shafts feel centered. We'll just bring the attachment bolts in, torque everything to spec, reinstall the slave cylinder, and we'll have our transaxle assembled. And there we have it. Our MTX75 is fully reassembled. Since it's not been repaired, it's not ready for service. My plan for it now is to donate it to the school. It'll probably be disassembled and reassembled dozens more times over the years.